Now it's on.
Oh, I didn't turn that part on. All right. Okay.
Yeah, that's good.
We good? Oh, thank everybody for showing up, specifically, well, for singing, but thank you for not leaving during the food section here. You may wish you had before it's all over with.
There's still time.
We're going to start, yeah, but we'll see you now. You're by the door.
I have the ability to keep my mouth shut, but I don't know how to do it. No, that's not how that goes. I had the right to remain silent,
Yes.
but I did not have the ability.
That's. I would go with that one. Yeah, that's good. Guilty myself as charged. We're going to take a few Wednesday nights, 3 and then 1 off, because that 4th Wednesday night in a row will be Thanksgiving Eve. And then we'll come back the first 2 Wednesday nights of December for one study of one concept, one word. You know, here several years ago we talked about, we studied faith as allegiance. We expanded our definition. We talked about grace as gift. We talked about the conscience. Particularly the first 2, everybody knows what faith is, except we found out that we didn't know as deeply as we needed to. Everybody knows what grace is. After all, grace just appears all over the place, and we've heard that all our lives, but it turns out that grace has many different meanings, and that I was able anyway, and we talked about the gospel also. What is the gospel? Those are all words that we just use in parlance all the time. We have all our lives. If you grew up in a Christian fellowship, then you oh yeah, I know what that means. And yet, we never take time to look at the things that we know so well that we've forgotten so much about. We just sort of speak in code with one another. And sometimes it's good to concentrate on a word or a concept, delve into it more deeply, because when you pull out of that and put into your head and your heart, makes it all the richer the way you're able to convey God's word to people. Such is the word glory. What we're going to do tonight is, I'm going to start asking you, first off, it's going to be audience participation, and you will not be allowed to sit there and just stare at me as you chomp down. I want to know what conjures in your mind when you hear the word glory. Not just even from a biblical perspective, but from a normal everyday life, society, civilization, your community, your country, and all that. And individually. And then we're going to see, we'll take those thoughts, we'll kind of focus them a little bit, we'll categorize them, and then we're going to talk about what the Bible reveals about glory. That's when we'll go, and I've got some scriptures I want us to be able to read towards the end of all this, okay? So, here's where we start. What comes to mind? There are no wrong answers. What comes to mind when you hear the word glory?
Heaven, I've got a home in glory then.
Heaven, okay? What else? Kathy?
If we're given the glory, we're given the credit.
The credit. That's interesting, yeah. We'll expand on that in a minute. Both good answers, both right answers. What else?
Light.
Light. Well, there goes point 1. I got no surprise on that one. What else?
God Himself.
God Himself.
Dwells in glorious light.
Yes. Who else? What else?
Praise.
Praise. Thank you. What else?
The vastness of the universe.
Okay. So the universe has a glory. Creation has a glory of its own. What else?
Amazing.
Sorry?
Amazing.
That's a response that you get when you observe that. That's exactly right.
But also, like, if something's glorious, it's amazing.
Okay?
It's kind of an adjective.
No, it really is an adjective. It's not even kind of an adjective. It's just flat out adjective. I'd call it that if it was me. Good. What else?
Worthy.
Huh?
Worthy.
Worthy. Here we go. Now we're kind of warming up. All these are good, but you're getting better as we go along. What comes to mind? When you observe scenes or episodes in Scripture, we're not going to talk about Scripture yet, but draw from that and then draw from life itself. What do you see? What comes to mind? glory.
May we be glorified in Him.
Okay? What does that mean, though? May we be whatted in Him?
Worthy.
And so you see the dilemma a little bit. Yeah, we don't know how to, I know what I mean, but I don't know how to express what I mean. That's exactly right, but you're right. You're exactly right.
Could you say that question one more time?
No, I've already forgotten it.
What about God's glory that guided the Israelites?
Okay? We're going to talk about that here in just a little bit. Yes, God's glory, and then you imbue glory with an actual power, an actual ability or capacity to move His people. They followed His glory, which was a pillar of cloud by day and a shiny cloud by night, right? Okay, yes. What else? Brilliance, yeah. Goes along with light. What else?
Abundance, wealth, and treasure.
Abundance, wealth, and treasure. So it's of high, high value. And there's more than you can ever spend if it was in your bank account. Yeah. Abundance. Every rock you turn over, every place you look. Okay, what else?
Glory is a spirit that comes from within and goes out and envelops people.
Okay, who's it come out of?
Typically God.
Is the only one?
It can come from humans too.
It can come from humans too. Humans have their own glory, and creation has its own glory, and God has His own glory. What else? Yes?
I don't know if this is helpful or not, but I had this old friend who's now deceased, that anytime he saw anything that excited him or entertained him in a major way or was kind of a sense of victory, he'd let a yell out, "Glory!"
Okay. Something's revealed to him about the quality or the nature of that thing or that incident or that person that inspired in him glory. All this is correct. All this is right. Anything else? Before I give you what my answers are here on the page, because I don't want to preempt you at all.
Royal, king,
Royal, kingly,
lifted up.
lifted up how and why? What's so special about a king?
He's the authority.
He's the authority. Why does he get the gold crown and the high throne and the praise and the adulation?
Because he's the only one that deserves it.
And why does he deserve it?
God ordained it.
God ordained it, and eventually bloodline, yeah. Okay, good. Okay, think about it in this way. What comes to mind when you hear the word glory? Let's focus a little bit. What do you see when you see glory? What's the first concept that comes to your mind? I already said it twice. Light. Light. Brilliant, dazzling, flashing, blinding. It overcomes. It's brighter than anything you ever saw. Radiant, glowing. That's what you see in your mind's eye when you see glory. Though it's associated. And you can think of those times in the Old Testament and New Testament when God's radiance, His light shines forth. Okay? And the New Testament tells us God is light, and in Him there is no darkness. That's another way of saying God's glory. What do you hear when you hear glory?
Trumpets.
Trumpets. A trumpet, the big one at the end, at the last day. Or trumpets. That's right. And typically those are piercing, arresting sounds. They'll draw your attention right to whatever. What else do you hear?
Angels singing.
Angels singing, music, yes. What else?
Earthquaking.
You hear the earthquaking, you hear the thunder and the roar. Yeah. West Texas thunderstorm. When it pops, I think, is he here? I can't help it. Thunder. One of the characteristics of God descending on Mount Sinai to give the law. Thunder and lightning and sound so loud that it drowned out everything else and struck fear in the people. Also, and we've got to go into Psalms for this. I've got a couple of references, but I didn't write them down. The roar of many waters. The roar of many waters. The constant, steady pounding of just a wall of sound comes from visions of glory. Yes?
Elijah also figured out was in quiet, whisper.
The other side of it, yes. Not as apparent. By contrast and context, yes.
We're doing like a study series on Max Lucado on the house of God.
Yeah.
And silence was an important aspect, like in the chapel,
Hmm?
because we like silence ourselves so that we can fully recognize the
Right.
of God.
Okay.
Like everything else is.
All right. So, yeah. So, in some sense, glory exudes sound, but in another sense, glory commands silence. Okay. What do you feel when you see, when you sense, when you encounter glory? What are some of the thoughts that you have? Feelings, emotions, whatever. Awesome. Beyond description, just the sheer potency of the thing stops you in your tracks, and you realize, I'm a bug, and that is not. Yes. Who said what else?
Excitement.
Peace? Okay. Yes. Okay. All right. There's an opposite to that. We'll get to that in a minute, but you're right. What else?
Excitement.
Excitement. Wow. Thrill.
Warmth. Warmth.
Warmth, perhaps. What do you mean by, how do you mean?
Well, I mean, I think it would trigger emotion, a sense of being at home. I think of Revelation as being around God who is light and is glorious. And you feel that. So, warmth.
So, security.
Yeah.
Okay.
Could be overwhelming.
Overwhelming, arresting, and dominating power. When it suddenly gets your attention, you cannot take your eyes off of it. You might want to. It might not be a peaceful thing, but it draws you so intensely you can't do anything else. Awe, thrill, intensity. It's not a milquetoast, watered down experience. It washes out everything around it, and that's what you focus on. And it has intensity and depth. Uplift and inspiration. When you see that glory and you realize it's not a threat, but that it is calling to you, although it's calling to you, it is radiating out towards you to teach you something, you can have peace. Or many people also have fear and dread, and some even terror. Because it is so other that it's impossible for the mind to process and get around and put in a box. And yet,
Adulation and praise.
adulation and praise. Yes, exactly.
Breathlessness.
What?
Breathlessness.
Breathlessness. It's that thrill, it's that, I don't want any, it suspends time in some way. Yeah. Yeah. Somebody else had a hand up, yes?
Is glorious usually a positive and like good?
Yes.
Okay, so, okay.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. So, that's what you feel. Yes, sir? One more.
I don't want to get you off subject, but I'm just...
Please don't, Tim.
All of a sudden, I'm having a curiosity. But do you think that even the highest of the animal kingdoms, monkeys, chimpanzees, whatever, do they have a sense of glory, or is that peculiar to human beings?
The short answer is there may be a hint of that, but there's not enough evidence to know. Because glory, as far as I can tell, has to do with, is effective, has efficacy on, with, and in one who understands it and is sentient and can process it. And they operate from instinct. They operate from, if there is an instinct towards glory, towards calmness, towards silence, towards peace or an arresting thing, it's because it's outside of their instinctive experience, and that's too, we can't, it's not like knowing what you are seeing. Okay? What attributes that you haven't already noted, and this is like, what do you see, what do you hear, what do you feel within yourself, within your own heart, what attributes generally come to mind from glory? What does it convey? What is the essence, what are the characteristics of glory? Let me give you a couple just to prime the pump. First of all, glory is pure. Beyond a purity, it is unadulterated. It is pure. It is ordered. It is complex, but it is not chaotic. It may be, and you turn and look in the first 2 or 3 chapters of Ezekiel, when Ezekiel saw the wheel and the throne of God came down, and there are the 4 cherubim around, and he describes them in detail, from the heads and the eyes and the throne and the way they move and all that. That's extremely complex, but it's not chaotic. It's not a mess. And glory, by its very nature, I'm going to give you a working definition from my head here in just a minute. See if that fits all this stuff, so hold that right now. But it is ordered, complex. It is. And these are qualities or characteristics that you've already mentioned in so many other ways when you were telling me about what's it look like, what's it sound like, what's it make me feel like. What attributes of glory come to mind? Pure, ordered, majestic, kingly, potent. It has power. It's not weak. It's not something that you easily, lightly dismiss or put in context and put in a box and go on about your way. It is potent. And if glory turns its power on you, you have little chance to resist. Just like in Isaiah chapter 6, when he was serving in the temple and he looked up, and the throne, God, a depiction of God was there, and his robes flowed down over this way, and all Isaiah could do, and God disappeared. He couldn't even see the top of him, of this figure, and Isaiah fell and said, "Woe to me, I'm an unclean man of unclean lips." When Ezekiel saw his vision, he fell and dropped down dead, and the Lord had to pick him up and stand him up and say, "Here's why I'm going to show you this. Here's what you're going to do as my prophet." So it is so potent. It is dynamic. Yes, you had one?
Yeah, when you said order, I also think wild. Cannot be contained.
Well, yeah, but that doesn't mean messed up.
That's not what I'm saying.
I understand. Well, but when you say wild, you mean you mean not contained.
Unfathomable.
What?
Unfathomable.
Yes.
Like we can't.
Unfathomable, profound. Yeah, to finish this thought. Yeah, I see what you mean. Maybe some of these other words help. Majestic, potent, dynamic. It's not a static thing. Inspirational. And as Gay said, it compels. It doesn't suggest. It doesn't invite. It compels praise and honor. It endures. This was interesting to me. Whether hidden or revealed. When these prophets had a vision, and the vision was over, or when John had a vision in the book of Revelation, when it disappeared, when it evaporated from their eyes, it lived on. He just couldn't see it with his senses. But glory is glory whether we see it or not, whether the veil is opened to us or not, whether we are invited to participate or not. Glory is, as God is. It promotes fame and renown. Fame, that's kind of a nasty word for us. We want to be humble. We don't want people, but what's the National Football League all about? Fame. What's the entertainment industry all about? Look at me. It's about glory. And well, some have in the past, but generally we have a different view of war now. But if one wins the battle and comes home, they are famous. It lifted Dwight D. Eisenhower from World War II all the way to the presidency of the United States. It lifted General Ulysses S. Grant to the presidency of the United States. Accomplishments, success on the battlefield, when the human is absolutely pushed to the limit to go beyond what they thought they could do, to sacrifice, and to even give up their lives and not be able to come home from the battlefield, we bring them or their remains home and we honor them because that's a glorious thing. Okay? Promotes fame or renown. God says to the tempter in that great courtroom scene at the beginning of the book of Job, see my servant Job. He's famous. I'll use this example later on, but there was a young lady whom we just encountered last Wednesday last Wednesday, who took and bought the most precious burial ointment perfume she could find and broke the box and poured it, one version says on Jesus' head, another one of the gospel says on his feet. She washed with her tears and she prepared him for burial. And Jesus said of her, I tell you the truth, wherever my story is told, she will be remembered. That's fame. That's the good kind of fame. We're going to talk about that later on. Okay? So, all these things, all these qualities, I tried real hard to organize this because when you read the word glory in the New Testament, in the Bible, period, by the way, I've got a good chain reference, a good concordance that is, and in the ESV, the word glory or glorify or glorification, whether it's noun, verb, or any kind of other modifier, but the root glory appears 473 times. 473 times. So it's a pretty important concept. It's sprinkled all the way through. It doesn't appear until about Genesis. The first time in the English Standard Version, it doesn't appear the first time until about Genesis 29, I think. But then it just takes off. And it changes character between the Testaments after the coming of Christ. Glory, here's the definition I want to give you. You like, first of all, glory. Yeah, and if you're a good Southern preacher, you don't say glory, you say glory. Right? Glory. All right, we're going to get out of this. So, I've got notes here when I was supposed to come over and push the button. I just ignored them. I wrote them down so I would know when I ignored them. That's kind of how my life goes. So we're going to get rid of that. Here comes our working definition. This is not the last word, but it's the best words that I can come up with. And you think about the sum total of all the things going on, and let's read this. The full expression of the purest, highest, truest essence, that is the sum of all positive aspects that constitutes the best nature of a person or thing. I tried to use as few words as possible and cast the net as wide as possible. And that's the best I can do. And if in these next 5 weeks we need to modify that and sharpen its focus or expand its boundaries, I'm more than willing for us to talk about that, because when I look at the word glory, I want to have this in my mind. So when I say, and the glory of God shone forth in some certain scripture, and we're going to read some in just a minute, I want to be able to think the full expression of God's purest, highest, truest essence, and all that is God, which is all positive, that constitutes His best nature. But when you say of a person or a thing, you're talking about all three domains. There is glory from God, in God, out of God. There is the glory of man, mankind. There is the glory of creation. God is altogether glorious in all He says and does. He is the ultimate source and final reference point for all glory. That seems self-evident, but when you say those words, it will align your thinking to say, I got nothing. Everything I have is from Him. It makes it easier for you to say, look at me. That's part of the problem with professional sports. Look at me. Yeah, you were born and created by somebody who gave you these gifts. When you see creation, I love going to the mountains. They always make me think of the Lord. Don't love so much going to the sea because it smells and there's sand and stuff like that, but Kathy loves it. So, but there is a glory in nature that transcends. It has its own worth, its own value, its own awe-inspiring, own arresting power. It is the... all right, let me go ahead. God, then mankind's glory. And we have a glory. And it's manifest in as many different ways as there are those of us on the earth. As many times as we have lived. Mankind's glory is all in the same, well, expressed as personal. Thought about, men on the battlefield, men and women on the battlefield who come home, heroes, who sacrificed and who saved others' lives, and who accomplished the goal and who preserved the nation. They have a personal glory. But mankind's glory is also manifested in community. Community of two or more, one or more people. There is something that goes on in the beauty of a friendship, in the beauty of a communion together in the Lord's body, in the beauty of a society, in the richness and the goodness of a civilization, which contains all sorts of societies and customs and whatever. And they all have their own special attractiveness. It brings mankind's glory, and Kathy and I are finding this out with the amazing doctors we have right now at Texas Oncology. I am just gobsmacked by how we are blessed. And I don't know if these people are believers or not, but I know they are glorious creatures. Mankind's glory brings discovery, inventions, innovation, order, harmony, balance, and peace. At least those things are manifested through man's glory. So much more. Creation's glory is the arena for the glory of God in man. Okay? It is the physical world, seen and unseen, because there are many things that exist we will never see with our eyes. We're not able to do that. That's why we have physics professors, physicists and mathematicians and astronomers and microbiologists and those kinds of things, where we know that there is much more to the world than we can put our five senses on. The physical world, seen and unseen, comprised of the forms, materials, and processes that reveal truth and goodness and beauty. Does that make sense? So, what does the Bible reveal about glory? As I told you, we're going to start with number 1, and we'll finish when we get through number 473. No. But I have I have three, actually 1, 2, 3, 4, I'm counting that as 17, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I want us to read together. Okay? These are samples of Old Testament, of glory in the Old Testament and glory in the New Testament. We're just going to start at the top, and I'm not going to put your name down, but I want to get a reader so you can kind of look ahead and see on this. Who wants the first one? Nathan, if you'll do the first one. Kathy, will you do number 2? Who will do number 3 in the Old Testament? Elijah. All three of you have the same check mark. I hope you can tell the difference. Okay? Who will take, in the New Testament, who will take John 17? Will you, Stryker, please? And this is 4 and 5, and then skip over 22 and 23. And yes, glass half empty, people. I'm chasing verses, but I'm trying to I'm not proof texting. I'm revealing, but I'm doing that by cutting away everything except what we are talking about. All right? Ephesians 3:16 and 1 Peter 4:14. These have to do. You want one or both of them?
Both of them.
Both of them. You got them. All right? Because they have to do with together glory and the Spirit. Okay? Last one. Lyndon, I'm going to assign these to you, particularly because of Romans 8. 1 Corinthians 15:40 through 43. Please just read those. Now, there you will see you will know already of other citations of glory that we'll get to in the next 4 weeks. 1 or 2 of them are key to what we're doing. But I just want you to warm up on these. Okay? May comment a little bit on them. But let's start back with the first one. Exodus 33, 18 through 23. Just read that and nothing else, please.
Moses said, "Please show me your glory." And he said, "I will make all my goodness pass before you, and will proclaim before you my name, the Lord. And I will be gracious to whom I will be gracious, and will show mercy on whom I will show mercy. But," he said, "you cannot see my face, for man shall not see me and live." And the Lord said, "Behold, there is a place by me where you shall stand on the rock, and while my glory passes by, I will put you in a cleft of the rock, and I will cover you with my hand until I have passed by. Then I will take away my hand, and you shall see my back, but my face shall not be seen."
There's 4 sermons right there. But what I want you to focus on, and this is one of the big ones in all the Old Testament, when Moses says, "Let me see your glory." All inclusive, encompassing. And then God breaks it down and says, "Well, I'll show you my goodness. I'll proclaim my name, which is the Lord, by the way, but I'm not going to show you my face." You couldn't stand it. Moses could not have withstood the power, the awesomeness, the intense brilliance, all of the concentrated, not distilled because it was never unadulterated, but the goodness of God coming at Moses. He said, and it's a beautiful thing. I'm going to put you, and we're going to split a rock. I'm going to put you in the middle of that rock. I'll put my hand over it. When I get by, you can see the back of me, but you can't see the front of me. That's one picture of glory. Who's got 34, 29 through 35? This is again Moses. And listen to this.
When
Go.
Moses came down from Mount Sinai with 2 tablets of the testimony in his hand as he came down from the mountain, Moses did not know that the skin of his face shone, because he had been talking with God. Aaron and all the people of Israel saw Moses, and behold, the skin of his face shone, and they were afraid to come near him. But Moses called to them, and Aaron and all the leaders of the congregation returned to him, and Moses talked with them. Afterward, all the people of Israel came near, and he commanded them all that the Lord had spoken with him in Mount Sinai. And when Moses had finished speaking with them, he put a veil over his face. Whenever Moses went in before the Lord to speak with him, he would remove the veil until he came out. And when he came out and told the people of Israel what he was commanded, the people of Israel would see the face of Moses, that the skin of Moses' face was shining, and Moses would put the veil over his face again until he went in to speak with him.
Isn't that amazing? And if you know your New Testament at all, you can turn as a companion to 2 Corinthians 3, 7 through 13. Don't do it now. Write it down. Look at it later. That's where the Apostle Paul uses this very example to say, to compare the old law that Moses is delivering from the mouth, from the hand, from the presence of God, and saying he put a veil over his face because the people couldn't stand it, and he would take off so they would see his face, his skin literally glowing because he had been in God's presence. He absorbed the glory of God and passed that through in his commands. And then when he finished, to save their eyesight, he put the veil back on until he went back up in the mountain again. And Paul says that's like the difference between, Moses veiled and unveiled is like the veiling that the Jews have over their hearts now, who cannot see and will not accept Christ. Unveiled. And there's another scripture that we're going to use, but don't you dare say it later on. But use that as a companion and go from there, okay? Huh? 2 Corinthians 3, 7 through 13. Lay those side by side tonight. All right, who's got the third one? Striker. 40, 34 through 38. This is at the end of Exodus.
He's the next one after.
Okay.
40.
Exodus 40, 34 through 38.
Then the cloud covered the tent of meeting, and the glory of the Lord filled the tabernacle. And Moses was not able to enter the tent of meeting because the cloud settled on it, and the glory of the Lord filled the tabernacle. Throughout all their journeys, whenever the cloud was taken up from over the tabernacle, the people of Israel would set out. But if the cloud was not taken up, then they did not set out till that day when it was taken up. For the cloud of the Lord was on the tabernacle by day, and fire was in it by night, in the sight of all the house of Israel throughout all their journeys.
So in that inaugural ceremony, not even Moses could see the glory of God. It appeared as a cloud. Not a blinding light, but it was so thick, so compacted, that when God came down, once again, He had not done this until before the creation, before the sin of Adam and Eve. But He's coming down to dwell here. And then after that, He says that, and that was their trigger to move. They got their marching orders from where this cloud was, which is a pillar of fire by night, cloud by day. They followed wherever it went. That's how they got through the wilderness in all their stubbornness and so forth. But it was the glory. It was the glory of God that did that. Okay? All in the Old Testament. We could sample the rest of the night, but let's go ahead and go to the New Testament now. John 17 is John's priestly prayer as he prepares himself to be sacrificed, to give himself up for an untimely, well, absolutely timely, but an unjust death for our sake and the sake of all creation and all sin. Who's got 17? First of all, verses 4 and 5, and then 22 and 23. Go, Striker.
I glorified you on earth, having accomplished the work that you gave me to do. And now, Father, glorify me in your own presence with the glory that I have had with you before the world, with the glory that I had with you before the world existed. And 22. The glory that you have given me, I have given to them, that they may be one, even as we are one. I in them and you in me, that they may become perfectly one, so that the world may know that you sent me and loved them even as you loved me.
This is so important. First of all, at least John, and I believe all the disciples, in this few hours or whatever, however long it took Jesus to get all this out, the last few chapters of John, Gospel of John, he's praying to the Father, and he said, I glorified you, and now glorify me. How? By taking my life, by allowing it to be taken. That's opposite from what we think of fame is, isn't it? That's what part of what this whole thing is about. He says, I glorified you, now you turn around and glorify me, and then take me home and glorify me as I was in the beginning. And then he talks about, immediately after that, not in these passages, in these verses, he talks about, and the ones you have given me. He kind of says, when they come to their senses, because they're going to all flee, and I know that, but bring them back together that they may be my messengers. And then he skips on down to 22 and 23, and he's talking about us. 2,000 years later, 3, 4, 5, 10, 15,000 years later, if he doesn't come until then, it's up to him. But he says, show them my glory. May they be glorified in me and be one, so that all the world will know that you sent me, and I am yours, and they are mine. This is the communion of glory. Glory is not a singular event. Glory moves and travels. And it's not a contract, it's not a transaction, it's not a sharing. If I have some bread, if I have some food over there, and you say, give me some of that, I'll give you some of that, but I still have some left over. What's yours, and what's mine is mine. And my generosity to you is the gift. But there's something different about communion, where there are no boundaries of ownership, where everything I have is yours, and everything you have is mine. And we each together glory, praise, in the way we share what we have together, with no boundaries, with no contractual limitations, but communion, covenant. That's what this kind of glory is about. Now, there are two. Brother Gaylord, I want Ephesians 3:16 and 1 Peter 4:14. So we've talked about the Father, we've talked about the Son, we've talked about man. We're not going to leave out the Spirit. Listen carefully to the way these two scriptures are put together. Ephesians 3:16.
That according to the riches of His glory, He may grant you to be strengthened with power through His Spirit in your inner being.
It's the riches of God's glory working through the Spirit that preserves and preserves you and makes you flourish. The Spirit is involved in that glory. 1 Peter 4:14.
If you are insulted for the name of Christ, you are blessed, because the Spirit of glory and of God rests upon you.
And there it is. That's even more focused. It is the Spirit of glory and of God, inseparable, rests on you. Spirit's not left out of this at all. All right, two more, Brother Lyndon, and I want you to read them. I know Romans comes before 1 Corinthians in the Bible, but for this context, would you please read 1 Corinthians 15, 40 through 43?
There are heavenly bodies and earthly bodies, but the glory of the heavenly is of one kind, and the glory of the earthly is of another. There is one glory of the sun, and another glory of the moon, and another glory of the stars, for star differs from star in glory. So it is with the resurrection of the dead. What is sown is perishable. What is raised is imperishable. It is sown in dishonor. It is raised in glory. It is sown in weakness. It is raised in power.
Amazing. And that speaks immediately and directly to the glory of creation, the glory that emanates from creation. And then he connects it with resurrection and the body. And now, finally, near and dear to your heart, Romans 8:18 through 21. And see what all creation, as if it's personified, as if it has a personality, as if it is a thinking, feeling being, see what sin has done and what it's looking forward to.
For I consider that the sufferings of this present time are not worth comparing with the glory that is to be revealed to us. For the creation waits with eager longing for the revealing of the sons of God. For the creation was subjected to futility, not willingly, but because of him who subjected it, in hope that the creation itself will be set free from its bondage to corruption and obtain the freedom of the glory of the children of God.
Is that amazing? Creation itself is waiting to be released from the bondage of what was put on it. Thank you, Adam and Eve. Until that time, and it will come forth in the glory that God made it, filtered through and focused through the glory of the sons of God. Okay? So, one last time. Ask yourself, everything that we've talked about, we're 15 minutes long. I appreciate this very much. Does this fit? Will you read it with me together? You may not like to do that, but it really helps do the words. If you want to just read along silently, that's okay. But let's define glory, and let's see if all these things fit under the umbrella, are congruent with, bolster, and are illuminated by this definition. Glory is the full expression of the purest, highest, truest essence, the sum of all positive aspects that constitutes the best nature of a person or thing. Does that ring true for you? If not, tell me otherwise and we'll modify it as we can. We'll submit it to the group and we'll go from there. But I want you to be able to see in all these scriptures all these things. And then you'll really know what you're talking about when you say glory. And you'll really know what you're encountering when you see and hear and are moved by glory. We sing, I love you with the love of the Lord. I love you with the love of the Lord. I see in you the glory of my King. And I love you with the love of the Lord. I love you with the love of the Lord. I love you with the love of the Lord. I see in you the glory of my King, and I love you with the love of the Lord. Good night, and thank you.